thank you all for being here for our first ever in-person community conversation. It is very exciting. It's been 2 years or so that we started the organization, and we've been Zooming for quite some time. A few people have met in person here and there, but like this is literally our first time getting together and actually having people. So thanks for coming over to our house. We appreciate you. We are going to go ahead and get started. BCDI community conversation. We're going to talk about running for public office 101. We've got some great guest speakers for you to listen to and ask questions. So please feel free to engage with our panel once we get to the Q&A session, and just enjoy your time here. So first and foremost, who are we? We are BCDI, Batavia Community Diversity Initiative. Again, we've been together, I guess, for a couple years now, doing our thing as far as nonprofit, and we are primarily BIPOC and women-led nonprofit organization committed to strengthening Batavia's commitment to diversity, equity, and belonging through anti-racist education and efforts. Together, we will build a better Batavia. BCDI operates within non-hierarchical shared leadership structure, so we recognize each other and meet as equals in our humanity, what exists at the core of us before relating through roles, status, and expertise. So basically, we don't have a president, vice presidents. Everyone has a voice, everyone listens, and then we all make decisions based on what's best for the organization. So just a little bit different from what other organizations are usually built on. So our leadership council right now consists of 4 people: myself, Robert Buckley, hello, Marisa Fouts, who's over here with us in the corner, Chris Lowe, who is actually on our panel today, so very awesome, and then Kathleen Meeks over here, who's running our little Zoom session out there. So thank you all very much for everything you do. I really do appreciate you guys, and yeah, I won't get all emotional and stuff. All right, if you want to find out more about us, go to bataviacdi.org, and you can see a little bit about how we began and kind of where we're going with BCDI. So our goals for our community conversations is really to increase education, right? That's kind of our pillar within BCDI. Most of the things we do have a education spin on it. So we want to make sure that we share that education with you all, and then you can share it with your community, which is, your tight-knit group or whoever that may be. We want to make sure we build a coalition. So we're always looking for new members to come through and offer new perspectives and ideas, and give us money if you want to, and all that random type stuff. And then we want to help identify ways individuals can support change. So that's kind of our goals with these community conversations, just bringing light to what may not be seen or may be in the dark at times. So our general meeting structure is first and foremost, we'll go over our mission and vision. Second, we'll go through our rules of protection. Third, we'll go through the norms and expectations. We'll invite our special guest speaker to come up and go through their deck, and then we'll talk a little bit of QA with our speakers up here, and we'll kind of introduce them a little bit later. And then we'll just do a quick close and then next steps. So this is a lot of words on the page, on the screen, but we definitely want to highlight these words as it is our pillar. So our mission and vision. So our mission is to cultivate and strengthen Batavia's commitment to diversity, equity, and belonging. Our vision is to create a sense of belonging for all members of our community through our commitment to justice, equity, diversity, and inclusion. We understand that by centering the needs and uplifting the voices of the most vulnerable, we all become more free of oppressive systems and ways of thinking. We envision a Batavia that is welcoming and affirming to all, a city that embraces our diverse ways of being and serves the needs of all its citizens so that all who live here can thrive, grow, and prosper. As far as our roles of protection, this is just kind of what we talk about in our community conversation. We want people to feel welcome and feel free to speak and share their ideas. So number one, we recognize that white supremacy is entrenched in our nation, Batavia, and ourselves. We use this meeting time to practice checking our own biases and privileges as we uplift voices that are not often centered, and to imagine what this shift will look like in a larger scale community. We understand that we will make mistakes and that it is not a personal attack on ourselves or our character if we're asked to decenter our voice in this meeting space. We appreciate we are learning together about how white supremacy shows up in our points of view and how we move within the world. We accept that it is on each one of us to do personal anti-racist learning and reflection work, and that this is a marathon that takes both strength building and determination. I will quote someone and say it's a marathon, not a sprint. Right, Chris? All right. I've heard him use that a lot, so I'm gonna take that one. And then number 5, we acknowledge our privileges and are mindful of how much time we claim in a conversation. We practice elevating and centering voices that may often go unheard. All right, our norms and expectations. So this is just basically, when you're asking a question, make sure it's for clarification purposes or factual questions. It's not a time to come and bash this or bash that or ask those volatile questions that people may feel uncomfortable answering. Obviously, if it's around our topic, we definitely want you to ask a question, but it should be very clarification based or factual based. And then what will this mean for decentered and vulnerable members of our community? So that's kind of what we should be basing our questions on going forward. And, as you think of questions for our panel as well. Anybody on the Zoom, you can send questions to Batavia Community Diversity Initiative. We have one of our team members here, and they're going to be screening those questions and can ask those questions within the room here of the panel once we get to that portion. And then for anyone in the room, obviously raise your hand. Back in the day, back in the grade school days, raise your hand and we'll bring the mic over. No blurting out. We're not gonna have that. So just let us know if you have any questions. So for tonight, we are going to talk about considerations when running for office, what to know about each office position, what to do once you decide to run, and then we'll have a Q&A with some of the office holders. This portion of the presentation is going to be done by Miss Patty Lackman, who is going to come up here and join me. Actually, I'm going to sit down, she's going to stand up, and then we're going to talk a little bit about how to get this thing done. So Patty, come on up. Thank you.
I'm Patty Lackman with the League of Women Voters. Can we hear it? Yeah, I have a loud voice. I have a teacher voice, so usually. Okay.
Good.
I won't touch anything, I promise. I'm with the League of Women Voters and I am voter service chair. I have been with the League for almost 20 years and have been involved in a number of candidates forums and working with issues that candidates have when they run for office. So we're nonpartisan, but we're very political. We have one arm is advocacy arm and the other arm is voter service arm. So this is the voter service arm you're going to hear tonight, not the advocacy arm. But I'm going to talk to you a little bit about how to run for office. There's a lot of information on these slides. I am not going to read all of it because when we did the run through, I'm sure people were like, time out, let's stop this. But this information will be available on your website. So I'm going to skim through it. If you have questions afterwards, then we'll talk about it. So how to run for office. Historically, local elections suffer from low voter turnout and lack of candidates. Voting is your superpower. And as the League of Women Voters, we register voters, we participate and get out the vote. We do a lot of things to try and make sure that everyone has the opportunity to have their voice heard. We all know that voting is your voice. Without active participation in democracy, there is no option for change. But there's another way for active participation. Run for office. Local elections may be the most important elections. Did you know that many candidates in our area run unopposed? I'm going to have to. Our local election officials are the ones that create the local laws, policies, and budgets, and they affect us the most. These elected officials run every 2 or 4 years and with very little citizen involvement. Historically, local elections suffer from low voter turnout, and in 2021, in the consolidated election in Batavia, there were 19,518 registered voters within the city of Batavia, and there were 1,255 people that actually cast votes. How sad is that? And we also face a lack of candidates. In Batavia, in 2021, we have 7 wards, and we had 5 wards that had uncontested races. That is more than half of the city of Batavia. Hopefully, by providing some basic information on how to run for office, you'll be motivated to fill one of the open vacancies in our community. I have to have a disclaimer here. Here's the small print. Please know that the information presented tonight should not be construed as legal advice. I'm a social worker. Always feel free to reach out to your county election authority with any lingering questions that may exist. Running for public office can seem daunting, but there are a multitude of resources available for potential candidates. They range from basic checklists to actual organizations that want to support emerging leaders. Again, information presented should not be considered a legal opinion or the final answer to any questions you may have. Running for office is a very personal decision. Only you can decide if you should run for office. There are some questions you may want to ask yourself. What talents do you bring to the board? What ideas do you have? Do you have an open mind and not make decisions until all sides of the issue have been presented? Are you willing to listen to all perspectives? Are you confident to express your opinion, to speak up? I never have a hard time with that. Do you have thick skin since people won't always agree with you? That I have a hard time with. Will you be able to support board decisions, even when a decision conflicts with your personal views? Do you have a friend who would also like to run? Or do you think your friends will be able to support you helping get elected? What to consider? What is your passion? Schools and education? Should you run for school board? Recreational programs? Should you be on the park district board? Library services? Maybe the library board, or city or township services. All these areas need representation of the community because they make decisions regarding programs and policies. This is where your engagement in democracy can make a difference. In April 2023, many of these local governmental bodies will have positions up for elections. These elected positions are nonpartisan, which means no political party affiliation. Why should I run? One of the reasons that people run is to help the community. This is the #1 reason. You see your community needs help, and you believe you have the desire, skills, and ideas that fill that need. Another reason is advocating for causes. There might be a specific cause or policy that's affecting your community, and you feel that you can have a real impact on the issue by running for office. Do your research. There's a lot of homework. You wouldn't accept a job without a job description, so be sure to know what will be involved in this particular area once you are elected. Look at the board and township and city websites, attend meetings of the specific governmental unit, and look at the meeting schedule. How often do they meet? What are the minutes from the past meetings like? Talk to current board members, ask questions. How much time is required to prepare for these meetings? You need to know that you can do this. As you are evaluating the cost and benefits of running for office, you have to consider something else. What's the cost of not running? What do these guys do? School board. And you're going to hear from them tonight, so I'm going to skim through a little bit. Board members are more than policymakers and administrators. They are advocates for students and their parents, and they are entrusted to engineer a better future. Your vote for the school board directly affects the education of students in K through 12. They are the link between the classroom and the community. There's some information about what they specifically do. City council, they make policy decisions to maintain and enhance the health, safety, and welfare of citizens and visitors. These decisions include a lot of things: annexation, budgets, citizens' concerns, etc. Requirements are the same as for mayor and county clerk. They have the final vote in creating laws and approving a city budget, and they can develop their own initiatives as well as responding to the mayor's proposals. All you have to do is watch BATV and you can see a lot of this. The mayor usually has more power than an individual council member, and they can override a vote. And it takes a super majority to override the mayor's veto. Park district, they serve without compensation. That's like something everyone needs to know. Which one of these groups actually gets paid to go and serve and which do not? They serve without compensation. They're locally elected commissioners that represent their fellow citizens and interpret their views. They have the primary responsibility of spending tax monies, fees, and donations designated for park and recreation services. They spend wisely, millions of dollars every year. Library board. I just want to say, as long as I've lived in Batavia, this is the third library that we've had since I've lived here. And this is a gem. This is absolutely the best library in the Fox Valley, if not all of Northern Illinois. And so we should be so happy that we have such a great opportunity to come and use such a wonderful resource. Library board are powerful advocates for the library. And I'm not a library board member. I'm just an advocate for libraries. Through coordination, hard work, and determination, libraries have been built, budgets have been restored and increased, and new respect has been generated for the powerful role libraries play in communities. There's a list of what library board members do. What are the next steps if I decide to run for one of these offices? I've decided to run, now what? You have to go to your county and pick up your election packet, and in it will include a statement of candidacy, and it gives specific information about you, your address, and your office being sought, and you have to have a statement saying that you're qualified for the position. I always wish that they'd also include email addresses because it's really hard to track people down when you're planning a candidate's form. Statement of economic interests that is filed with the Illinois Secretary of State and the Illinois State Board of Elections. A loyalty oath. Some positions require a loyalty oath. Sorry. You'd think I'd never read before. Swearing that the candidate does not plan to teach or advocate for the overthrow of the government and that they're not affiliated with any communist groups. A Fair Practices Statement Act and petition signature sheets. Those are really fun to do. Petition signature sheets are very involved, and the things that you need to know are that someone can't sign for someone else. They must be a registered voter within the jurisdiction, and that they must clearly sign their full name as it appears on their voter registration card. There are a lot of other requirements, and it's always fun when you come out of a grocery store and somebody's there with their petition. Would you sign? Would you sign? So, signing and circulating. Any U.S. citizen can circulate. They must personally witness the signature. You can't just leave it on a table. And that has caused some problems in the past. And it's been very difficult since the pandemic to get people to actually go out and get signatures. It's time to turn in your paperwork. Follow the checklist provided by your county elections office. The papers are filed. You're now a candidate. And you can begin thinking about your campaign. What am I going to do? Am I going to knock on doors? Am I going to have door hangers? Am I going to make phone calls? Am I going to use social media? Am I going to have lawn signs? These will all be decisions you have to make. You're going to recruit your friends to help you. Once you've determined what you're going to do, you're going to have to take a look at the money you're going to need. If you're running for a local office, obviously you're not going to need as much as you will if you're running for governor or congressperson or whatever. And as a social worker, I always feel that for every dollar spent in a campaign, another dollar should be put in the pot for some social service reason, for something that's needed for DCFS or something that's social justice related. So you don't have to usually worry about campaign finance rules if you're running locally, but there's a lot of information that you do need to look into. And as I said, I am not a lawyer, so you'll have to, we'll be able to look up a lot of that information with your local election authority. Come election day, you can relax. The work is done. We're hopeful now, after you've heard all this, that you'll step up and run for office like these people have. You don't have to have a law degree, a PhD, or be a political science major. What you do have to have is the desire to make a difference and be part of the decision-making process to improve your community. Be a part of the change you would like to see. Be an active part of our democracy. So, thank you.
Awesome. Let me work on my microphone. Thank you very much, Patty. That was great information, and hopefully some people are bubbling and thinking about running for some office. So we just got a little bit more information for you here. From an election timeline perspective, for as of the fall of 22, December 20th through 19th, they're going to have the filing period for candidates seeking election on April 4th, 2023. Petitions may not be circulated prior to September 20th of 22. And just keep in mind, we'll put up the QR code again for those that joined a little bit later, so that you can grab this this deck, as well as in the chat, we should have a link to get the deck. So you don't have to scribble down all these dates and all that fun stuff. For the spring of 23, election day for local offices is Tuesday, April 4th, 2023. Whoop. Go forward, Robert, go forward. All right. Open seats for the April 2023 election. So on the Park District Board, there are 2 seats that will be on the ballot. Batavia Library Board, there will be 3 positions available. Batavia School Board, there will be 4 seats, 3 of the 7 seats on the ballot. Summer 23, the superintendent retires. So that is positions, a licensed staff position that will be filled through interviewing qualified applicants. Candidates must have a professional educator license with a superintendent endorsement. On the Batavia City Council, 7 of the 14 alderman positions will be on the ballot. Note there's 1 alderman per ward. So there are quite a few open positions available. For those out there that are listening or have friends that they feel like would be a good candidate, please look into this. It's super important, and we have a few people here that can kind of talk about what they do on a day-to-day and give us a little more information. So Andrew Dykeman is part of the Batavia Library Board. He's actually in a meeting right now for the Batavia Library Board, so he might join us a little bit later. We've got Dan Chanzit, who's over here. Actually, I'm going to get out of here. Give me 1 second here. Stopping my share. There we go. Hey, there they are. All right. So Dan, wave at the crowd. Whoop, whoop. All right. He is part of the Batavia City Council. Chris Lowe. Whoop, whoop. All right. Part of the Batavia School Board. And then Miss Molly Connolly. Whoop, whoop. Part of the Batavia Park District. So as you start thinking about questions, keep in mind these people are here to answer questions. They're going to give just a brief overview of kind of what they do, how long they've been there, and then you all can share, ask any questions via chat or in the room here. As you're thinking through it, think about things like, what makes you not want to run for candidacy, right? Like what barriers do you see in your own life that you may need to ask these people in order to say, okay, well, they have the same kind of issue and they're doing it, so maybe I can do it as well. So just, ask away. So I'll start with you, Chris, if you want to grab the microphone. Yes.
They are already out, so I will start with my phone here. Go for it. My name is Chris Lowe. I am a city.
Talk a little lot, yeah.
That better? Okay, sorry about that. My name is Chris Lowe. I am a sitting school board member. I am in my 8th year, my 2nd term. I will be up for re-election in April. I joined the board because I am a stay-at-home parent, and I started off volunteering for my kids at the elementary school. Worked my way into PTO, ended up being PTO president, and people talked me into running for school board. And so here I am 8 years later, and I love serving the community.
My name is Dan Chanzit. I originally interested in politics, covering politics. I was a reporter for the King County Chronicle for about 10 years, covering local politics, municipal things. I remember sitting in the audience being like, I can do better. And it was such boring material. I was interested in it. I always kept it in the back of my mind that someday when I'm in the right place, I would like to learn.
Yeah, I'm just trying to bring it a little bit closer.
Is that good?
Yeah, if you could talk a little bit closer to the there you go, to the computer. Yep. You can still use the mic.
Sure. So I spent time as a newspaper reporter. I worked for the Beacon. I worked for the Chronicle, and I remember traveling around to various boards around Kane County, thinking I could do better than everyone up there. Turns out that I had it completely wrong. I didn't really truly understand the position, and I grew into the position after attending meetings in the audience with no stories to write, no deadline. I'm now in my 3rd term. It's my 11th year. I feel like a newcomer. I just found my voice this last term. I really did. And I'm the 2nd most senior person on the council now. Immediately above me is Alan, who's mayor pro tem. So feasibly, if Mayor Shelkey decided to step down or something happens to the mayor, Alan would move up, and then I'm the vice mayor of Batavia. How did that happen in 11 years? But that said, I approach running for office much like everyone in this audience is today. I'm very academically looking for an answer. The truth is, I will tell you how to beat me. If you live, does anyone here live in the 3rd ward? By the way, I'm going to hand the election to you. If you want to win, you can unseat me after the things I say tonight. So be sure to ask me, how do I vote you out of office? I brought all the information with me because I truly want everyone here to have a chance, and it's so easy to do.
Well, how am I supposed to follow that? Molly Connolly, and I'm on the park board. I own a software development company, and my other passion is I love being in the outdoors, and I got very involved in the failed attempt to get a rec center for Batavia. So I was very passionate about that. I was very disappointing. And then but at least I got to know everybody, and they're like, Molly, you're really passionate about this, join the board. And I said, I'm still bitter. I'm not, but I got over it. And so now I've had a chance to participate for the last 2 years on the park board. And I've just really enjoyed it. I'm learning a lot more about Batavia, a lot more about the interaction between the different groups, which is sometimes frustrating. But it also just gives me a chance to, better advocate for the type of services that I think we should have. So I really enjoy it. And I don't know if we're going to come back to this, but the other piece about running for me is it is kind of a laundry list of forms to fill out. I didn't find that difficult. What I did find difficult, which you will not have a problem with, is going door to door with COVID when it was, 10 degrees out. And people would not answer the door. So that was tough, but I figured it out. So if you do decide to run, I can help you, because basically I just got a team and said, can you ask 10 of your neighbors to sign, so that I had, and then you get your 100 signatures very quickly. That was actually the biggest challenge for me. Also, I was unopposed, which I know is not what we're going for, but it's a lot more satisfying to know that you're going to win. So it's a good place to start here in Batavia. So that's my 2 cents.
All right, so we are going to jump into the Q&A. So if anybody has questions in the room, as I said, raise your hand, or if there's questions online that you may have so far, let's go ahead and jump into those. All right, let's do it.
Right here. Thanks so much for putting this together and three of you to be educating us on your various roles. I think my question is for Dan, being on the city council. So the alderman position, do you need to live in the ward where you were running for alderman? And then can you tell me a little more about what you would do in that position?
That one time.
Yeah.
Should just pull it out or just leave it in there.
So yeah, you do have to live in the ward. We don't serve at large. There's roughly 3,200 registered voters in my ward, and we adjust them with the census to make sure that the wards are fairly represented. So there was some building done in my side of town, and so there were some streets that I lost, some longtime people that I had counted on for signing my petition that couldn't sign my petition a couple of terms in. As far as you were asked about what the role is, what the job is, it's what you make it. The job requirement is that you show up for 2 city council meetings per month, the first and third of the month. And there's where the sausage is made is on Tuesdays. We attend committee meetings. We read memos. We understand things on community development, finance, you name it. All of those issues, we work on those on Tuesday nights. If you just attend the Tuesday night meetings and you just attend the Monday night meetings, I would say that's the bare minimum. You're allowed to miss 2 city council meetings and you'll still earn your $400 or your $4,800 per year, which is not even remotely worth my time.
For the money?
I'm not doing it for the money. Be absolutely clear about that. But I'm also the only one up here that's paid. The other positions don't. They get wait. But yeah, the role is what you make it. I am accessible 24 hours a day through email. Part of my campaigning was passing out a magnetic business card that has my cell phone number on it. And I tell people, put this on your fridge, call me if you have a problem connecting with your government. And so I typically am the person that puts people in touch with who it is that they need to speak with. I get stopped on the street and we'll talk about issues for a long time, about whatever it is that you want to do.
You talk about it or just listen about it?
I talk about them if someone asks me questions, but I do absolutely listen. And a lot of people say, I know you already made up your mind. The answer, no, I did not make my mind. Please tell me what you think, because if I can't convince my neighbors of what my idea is, I'm really supposed to represent them. Is really what it comes down to. But the role is it's what you make of it.
Something else that might want to be included in this conversation. How many signatures did you need to get?
It depends on which election. It's in mine, what is it, 2% of the previous election. So one time I only needed 14 signatures, but no more than, what's that? 64 signatures. I collected 800 signatures that year, and I only turned in 6 sheets. So I engaged people. I knocked on those, which there was no COVID back then.
Yeah.
But I tried to engage. I've engaged almost every one of my 3,400 voters over the last 12 years.
I needed 100. That's not too bad.
And I think I needed around 75, but I'm not positive on that. It's been a while.
This last time around, the mayor only needed a little more than like 150.
And
It's not a lot.
when you're running unopposed, you don't need to get 800.
I guess not.
You still want people to vote.
I guess not.
You still want, yeah, overachieving.
Well, that goes to, I don't want to like hog the whole thing, but that goes to my reporter background. I remember exactly where I was on, and it was April 11th. No, hang on, here we go. April the 5th, 2011. I was at Susan Stark's house. I counted the number of signs that she had in her neighborhood. She had the most number of signs. And as a newspaper reporter, that's who I would tell my editor, that's the house I'm going to tonight. Please send a photographer, because that's the winner tonight. And it's true every time. And she's like, this is really presumptive, Dan. This is really weird. I'm like, just wait till the polls close. Then we're going to run to the precinct, count the votes and see who won. Sure enough, Susan had 49% of the vote, and she won by about 40 votes.
Every vote counts.
Yeah.
Every vote really truly does count.
Last election in St. Charles, I believe there was school board that was separated by 3 votes. So every vote counts, seriously.
And Chris, school board's the most competitive, right? Or they are.
Well, it depends, because so 2 years ago, we had no competition. We had 4 people running. Sorry. We had 4 people running for 4 positions at the last time, but when I ran 3 years ago, we had 7 people running for 4 positions. So it just depends on the year. I hope that I have competition again this year. I want people to run against me. I think that the community deserves choice. That's why we're doing this.
That mic that Chris is using is to focus here that.
Okay.
They heard the questions. I do have questions from.
Okay.
Yes.
You want to
Should I
grab
pick
the mic?
up the mic or?
All right, we got some questions from the people at home, so we're going to have our friend over here read the questions.
What, I know Dan just spoke to it a little bit in your role. What are the time commitments for various boards or for various positions? Various board members.
Does this one work? You can hear me okay? All right. So Park District, we meet once a month, and I've been very impressed by how well they run the meetings. I've been on different boards where they be hours and hours. We're always, in, out, 2 hours, very efficient. And then we typically, I'd say it's probably more like 15 meetings a year, just because there's a couple additional meetings when things come up. I also participated in a conference, so that was a couple days, but a lot of the work's optional. So yeah, it's a very reasonable commitment. And then I think to your point, you can get more engaged in additional activities, but the main commitment is just the monthly meeting.
Yeah, I think Dan hit the nail on the head when he said, you make of it what you want to make of it. The minimum for school board is we typically have 1 meeting a month. The agenda will come out on Thursday or Friday, and you'll have to review that agenda and know everything on there. So sometimes that requires research. Sometimes it's a topic you've discussed before. Obviously, you're on the honor system as far as how much homework you do. One of the things that was said earlier, whether or not you want to run for a specific reason, for a specific topic, I would actually discourage people from doing it for just one reason. You're there to represent the community for all topics. And although you may have certain topics that are important to you, you need to be knowledgeable on all the topics to represent everybody effectively. So for me personally, I am more efficient because I've been on the board a little bit longer. But I also understand where I need to put in time. I probably put in somewhere between 10 and 20 hours a week. Just most of that is having conversations with the community, reading, continuing education, learning about different topics that we're learning about. So even though I may not be doing directly school board business, I am constantly trying to better understand our community and better understand the topics that we're representing. But I don't think that I think I'm unique. I don't think that everybody puts in that amount of time. So make what you want. Minimally, you're probably doing 10 hours a month, you know, prepping for the meeting, going to you. There's usually a couple committees that you're involved in. And you have to report back to the board. So you minimum 10 hours a month, but it can be, you know, there are some months that it's more than 40 hours. It gets busy. We have a lot of stuff, like we have a referendum coming up. We have for superintendent search. So it takes time. And especially if you want to do it well.
I was just gonna add that, you know, that's another reason, like Patty mentioned, have it be something you're passionate about, right? Because when I say, oh, it's only once a month, but I really enjoy hiking. So I've been hiking all the trails, and I enjoy visiting the different parks, and I enjoy trying out different exercise equipment, right? So that's things that I would want to do anyway. And now it's things that I'm, you know, and I'm sure a lot of the research you're doing is really important overall. So I think it helps to be something that you're really excited about. And then you're not counting how many hours you're showing up at a meeting. It's about kind of what your overall involvement is.
City council's anywhere from 50 to 75 meetings. But if I wanted to attend all of the meetings, it's 160. You could feasibly go to a meeting once every 3 days if you really wanted to. Alderman Brown every year used to tell us, he would tally them up at the very end of the year when we approve the calendar. I can think of only maybe a handful of times over the last 12 years that I really wanted to be seen at a planning commission meeting. I always felt like I was interfering. If they could see me there, I prefer to read it or watch it on TV. I didn't want my presence to affect the vote. And sometimes I felt like I was micromanaging. There were a couple of times I wanted to see the passion and I wanted to see people's eyeballs. And that was important. That was important to me. So I only checked in a couple of times.
There are a lot of questions from people at home, but I wanted to make space for people in here, of course.
I did want to mention one more thing about the turning in your petitions. You had that turn-in day, and at 8 o'clock in the morning, I think you can turn in your petitions. If you are in line to turn in your petitions, they have a lottery that determines ballot order. And it may be surprising, but whoever's at the top of the ballot tends to get more votes, just because if people aren't familiar, they vote for who's on top. So I would highly recommend being there in line for the first day, especially if it's going to be a contested race. If you come in later, then you're added to the end of the line so that you'll be at the bottom of the ballot.
Any other questions in the room?
It's as much as the 2 to 3%, which can make a difference. Yeah.
They're really good questions. I don't have time for all of them. So this is for any member on the panel. What is something that surprised you about running that was easier than you expected? And what is something that was harder? And if we have time, same question for being in your position.
Who wants to start?
I'm going to start.
Okay.
So I already answered about it was hard getting signatures, and then I figured it out. But I think to the question of what is hard in the position is that idea of going in and having to, like, you know, you're on a board where you don't agree, and sometimes you come up with with an overall opinion that you have to be on board with. So that's been challenging. It's also it's a different role for me because I own my own company, so I'm used to, you have an idea, you execute it, you implement it, and this is one where I have to sit back and more provide an advisory role. And so we'll plan to do something, and then I want to get my hands in there, but that's not my job, right? That's the job of the executive director. So it's been a really good learning curve for me to learn a different role of, listening, advising, sorting through the different things, and again, coming up with the best plan for everybody, which is not necessarily my opinion, which is, a good thing to learn, like to try and compromise. So
I'd say it's easy to say yes or no on your vote. When it comes time to vote, it's difficult to explain why. It's difficult to get consensus. And so there's different schools of thought for the different boards that you're on. On mine, there's 14 of us, and it's actually called the weak mayor system, whereas Mayor Shelkey is sometimes a figurehead, and the real power lies with the alderman. Is that if I can get 7 of my colleagues to agree with me on something, my idea wins. If I can only get 6 of them to agree with me, I have a 7-7 tie, and I hope that the mayor is on my side. It just kind of depends. But I feel like you should be able to explain yourself and understand the consensus is the real job, not winning. And it's not being right. It's about hearing the other point of view, having your point of view, finding where the middle is, and seeing where the consensus is. That's where the real power lies.
For me, the biggest surprise was learning how slowly government works. You are very gung-ho when you first decide to run for office, and you have all these ideas of the changes that you want to make, similar to Molly, where you may be in a position where you make decisions and you implement them in your life, and that's normal. When it comes to government works glacially slow. And you have to recognize that. And you have to recognize that if you want to make changes, is it a long-term game? As Robert said earlier, it's a marathon, not a sprint. So, when you're looking at changes, you're looking at changes that you're going to see 2-3 years down the road. For example, this referendum, we've been working on that for 4 years now. And, it took 4 years to get to the point where we could actually put a question on a ballot to pass a referendum. And then if that referendum passes, we're still looking at a couple more years before we actually have shovels in the ground building new schools. So it's a process, and it takes time and it takes patience, and you need to be able to work with people who you may not get along with. And you may need to reach out to other parts of government and, find allies where you can, build coalitions. So you have to be patient. And that was the toughest thing for me to learn. On the positive side is once you learn the system and you understand how it operates, making change is possible. And you can do it and you can see it. And there are many things that we've done that I'm extremely proud of on the school board. So, you can make change. It just takes time and patience.
Any question?
I would just add to that, moving glacially slow is not necessarily the worst thing in the world sometimes. It prevents populism. Ideas that are not really well constructed, but everyone thinks they're the right idea. And I would say, having served 11 years now, we just recently implemented some of the major changes to the water treatment plant. Those we were first talking about when I first joined back in 2010. We floated the idea quietly behind the mayor's back of naming the building after him. We just did it this week. took us well over 10 years to do that. A lot of projects take well over a decade.
Okay, how much money do you spend on your campaigns? How much should you expect to spend on your campaign?
I'll go first. School board is interesting in that we have a teachers union. And if you're endorsed by the teachers union, they will pay for your signs. And as Dan mentioned earlier, if you have the most signs, you tend to win. Over the last several, and I can't guarantee that this will happen, but over the last several elections, who these teachers union endorses tends to win. And the reason for that is over 40% of our teachers live in town. So, and we have low voter turnout. So if you combine low voter turnout with very vested teachers who are invested in the process, they tend to get their way. I don't think that that's necessarily a bad thing, but I think that it's also important that we have that competition. If you don't have the endorsement of the teachers union, you probably will want to buy signs. From what I understand, it's in several $100 range. I don't think I've spent more than $150 on my campaign. So I've done a minimal amount of advertising on like Facebook, but in reality, word of mouth is much stronger. Having your connections of friends and acquaintances, making sure that the people who support you go out and vote is the most important thing. So, if you have your areas where you know people, then that is where I focus my energy. I wouldn't worry about the money. I would worry about making sure that your people know who you are and know to vote and know to spread the word.
My stepdad offered me a check for $100. I turned him down because they said I don't want to file the paperwork on it. I'm just not interested. I have a war chest of around 75,000. I've raised over 12 years. No, I spent $110 on those magnetic business cards. That's all, and they've lasted me 12 years.
Nice. Good job.
I do have signs in my basement that I put back out.
Yeah, and I didn't spend anything either. I just spent the energy giving the signatures.
It's your time. It's your time,
Fine.
and you're idling gas if you're driving. Yeah.
Thanks so much for being here. I'm wondering how many of the races will likely be uncontested again, or if they'll all be contested, and if the incumbents will be running.
We are looking for 2 people for the park district. So those will be 2 currently no candidates, 2 people on the board are stepping down.
Are you one of them?
I am one of them.
Okay. Just thought I'd point that out.
Yeah. I've enjoyed my term and I'm looking for someone to replace me.
It's just a little too early in the season for city council to say that they're running. I am going to run. I imagine I hate to be cynical here. I love that this forum is happening. I hope it has an impact. But the truth is the first year I ran, voter turnout was 11%. I had 222 votes. There were 291 of them cast. 70 people didn't like me and they had one choice. And they didn't. And they couldn't bring themselves to click on my name. The next one was 18%. I had 400 votes. Next one was 12%, 250 votes. And I gained in popularity. I went from 76% to 84% approval. But that said, there were well over 2,200 votes that were never cast. And I had engaged a lot of those people, but they never even cast their vote, which is why I opened my remarks tonight by saying, you can win. If you can just get 294 people back in 2011, you could have won against me. That's how easy it was, but you have to deliver them to the voting booth. You have to get them to actually show up. So when I counted those signs for Susan and figured out how many people actually were going to vote, every vote does count. And if you can deliver an electorate that I could not deliver, you will win. And again, not to be cynical, I predict that, and I love everyone I'm serving with right now. I would be devastated if any one of them stepped down. I would respect the town if they voted someone else in, if they thought they were doing better. I would imagine 2 or 3 will be contested.
Based on everything that's going on in the country and locally, I fully expect there to be competition for the school board. So whether or not I will run again, I am still on the fence. It depends on what we decide to do as a community. If we decide to continue to do the work that I want to do, I am more than happy to engage in that. If we decide that we want to go a different route, I don't want to be a figurehead for something that I don't necessarily support. Mm-hmm. So we shall see.
I know you mentioned that you don't have to have experience in your position or area. What advice would you give to a new resident community as to how best to get involved?
I'll start. Get to know your elected officials. They're very down to earth, most of them. They're very accessible. Go to meetings, watch the meetings, figure out which one resonates with you the most. Go to a school board meeting, go to a park district meeting, go to a library meeting.
Question.
Oh. Could you repeat it again, just so I phrased it correctly? If you're new to the community, what would you suggest to get involved in politics? Is the question, and I would say get to know the people who are in the offices. know your aldermen, know your representatives on school board, know your park district members, go to the meetings, find out how they're run. And then once you decide which position that you want to run for, keep going to the meetings so that you're up to speed, so that when the candidate forums come, you know what you're talking about, almost as well as the people who have been sitting in the chairs.
Sure.
Anybody else want to add to that?
I was just gonna say, I like the idea of going to the meetings too. Also because no one ever comes to our meetings, but but I think it's a good way to get to know, what types of issues they're going through and find out if it's engaging to you and if that's the kind of place where you'd want to spend your energy. I think going to the meetings is probably number one.
I would just add to that, there's a very big misconception on what the city council actually does. I give this as an example. Twice a year, the third ward, we go out to the homestead. We do a coffee with the alderman, and we just let anyone talk. What do you want to talk about? And they have complaints about the city, and they'll tell us what their complaints are. And the emails that I get on a daily basis, I have a complaint about this. A lot of people don't understand the structure of how the government works. They think that I have some power over the school board. I do not. I have power over my budget, and that's it. I'm just the municipal part. I'm just the city part of it. So I would say understand what your passion is and volunteer with the organization. If you are really passionate about recreation, absolutely volunteer your services. Do something with the park district. If it has something to do with information or with library services, by all means, align yourself with the library. If the city is not necessarily just the city, it's the city, which is sewers, which is going down to Springfield to lobby for municipal utility tax reform, which I find super sexy. And I will do twice. I do that twice a year as a banker. It depends on what it is that you're interested in. We will do the fanfare stuff on the Monday night meetings, like watch the first 20 minutes of our meetings. That's all like the kids and the schools, and it's like all these people handing out awards. Then they all leave. And then we talk about $160 million budget that is way more impactful and way more on their daily lives. And if they just sit and listen to it, they could learn something. They're not interested in it as much. So like, we voted for you. Dan, you got this. We're good. And then they bolt. Understand what your passion is, because if you're not interested in it's taking 10 years to build a water treatment plant, which I got my name on the building in bronze, which was super cool. And I had no idea. It actually made me cry when I saw it. It's not as cool as buying a fire truck, and we don't do that often. But that's pretty cool, buying a fire truck. To understand what your true passion is and align yourself with that area, and then go full steam ahead, because you will succeed.
I do think that Dan brought up a good point about knowing what the job is, because a lot of people have misconceptions of what it means to be a school board member. And really, we have 3 jobs. We do the budget, and we control the budget. We hire and fire the superintendent and manage her, and we do policy, most of which is established by the federal and state government. So those are the only, we can't do, we don't get involved in what happened to your kid at school. We don't get involved in specific teachers. We don't get involved in specific activities. We are strategic. So we guide the ship, but the superintendent runs the ship. And she's in charge of hiring everybody and making sure all the policies are implemented. Our hands are washed at that point. We just observe. So a lot of times people think that we have control that we don't. And that's part of the ship moves slowly, and you just have to kind of be patient.
I think we'll do one more question. The rest of the presentation. Whose voices do you think are currently missing on these boards and on city council?
Like how I always go first. I think it'd be, one of my questions was, how old do you have to be to run for office? I'm curious. I'm assuming you have to be 18, but I'd love to see younger people. Right, I'd love to see.
You have to be a registered voter.
So, okay, so
So you could be-
18, yeah. I think that would be exciting.
I will say that the Latinx population is our second largest demographic, and they have no representation in any of our governments as far as I know. So I would say that that is a community that is severely underrepresented, and I would give up my seat in a heartbeat if I could find somebody who would take my place, because I think that that community deserves that representation.
I think I'm the only LGBT person, at least the only out person. I'd like to see someone else either come out and use their voice, because we got a lot of issues that really need some help right now. I'd like somebody else to run because we need their voice. Latinx, absolutely. But I guess it comes down to understanding it's not just race, it's not just ideology. I'm the only guy that lives in a house less than $200,000. So I'm that guy as well. I used to be the youngest guy, now I'm not that guy anymore. It just really depends. But yep, I absolutely agree with you. And more women, I would say. We just recently turned the corner in city council. We started to get more women back involved, which is absolutely a step in the right direction. Much better.
I think the voices we don't have is pretty much the best answer. Is, we have a lot of relatively upper middle class, well-to-do, mostly white, mostly male folks, and their voices are well represented, and they don't need another voice. Whereas other people have other things that they can contribute, which makes our community richer. And so I think when those voices are in the conversation, you have ideas that you may not have thought of otherwise. And you realize that you don't make the mistakes that you would have made otherwise when you have other eyes and other perspectives in the room making the decisions. So I think, just as a general rule, if your perspective is underrepresented, I would encourage you to run. Regardless of what demographic that is, if your voice isn't being heard, make it heard.
Thank you.
All right, I think that ends our Q&A session. We're going to jump back into the presentation a little bit. So
Can I just ask, if there are additional questions, can we answer them offline and potentially post them?
Yes, I have a report.
Yeah, I would love to do. I would be happy to do that.
oh, don't worry, I'll be sharing your contact info. So Dan, is your phone number the same as it was 10 years ago? Is that what you're telling me?
Indeed.
Woo. You the man, Dan. You Dan the man. You know that's a video game? Kids play it. Sorry. Random stuff. Random dad stuff here. All right. So yep. Thank you all so much for participating. That was super awesome. And I hope the audience virtually as well as in the room found that very impactful. We're going to jump back into the presentation real quick. Just got a few more slides to go through, and then we should be good to let you all go. So, all right. So again, thank you to Dan, Chris, and Molly, as well as Patty, for coming through and sharing some of your knowledge with us. We truly appreciate it. Get that out of the way. So how can all of us get involved with this work? So encourage others to run, right? I know you all know some people that make noise and talk in the house and call you and voice their concerns. If you feel like you have those types of friends and or family members, whatever the case may be, encourage them to even, think about it, look into it, see if it's something that they would want to do. We have contact information up here for our guest speakers. So again, Andrew could not join because he is the library trustee and he's in a library meeting right now. Dan Chanzit from the City Council, Chris Lowe from the School Board, Molly Conley from Park District, and then Patty Lackman is from the League of Women Voters. They are always doing stuff. I always see their name. I think I saw your name on some Facebook post that you're in Naperville doing some stuff as well. So y'all are doing your thing. Very nice. What's that?
It's always nonpartisan.
Yes, definitely nonpartisan. Nonpartisan advocacy. I love it. Thank you again. So obviously, BCDI, go to our social media networks. We've got a bunch of QR codes in the presentation as well. So obviously, we are also here for support. So if you have questions or you feel like you want to run, but you're not really sure where to go, or you don't feel comfortable reaching out to the folks on the panel because you just may not know them and you may feel more comfortable talking to us, please reach out. We want you all to run. We want you all to be comfortable. And, as they said, we want all voices represented within City Council, School Board, Library Board, because that just makes our community a richer community overall. So sheshouldrun.org. This is mainly a organization that supports women running for office. Runforsomething.net. That's also something that is for progressive candidates under 40. Very specific niche there, but I think, like you all were saying earlier, the younger voice is definitely needed because they have a different experience and they're going through something very different than us older folks have went through and that we were involved in at the time. So from a BCI standpoint, we just ask you to stay engaged. We appreciate you all coming out again, first time ever, and we really love the turnout. We was a little nervous, I'll be honest. We're like, oh man, what if like 2 people show up? So thank you all again for coming out. We have a BCDI membership group on Facebook. The QR code is there, as well as in the PDF. You can scan that as well. We will have more community conversations. We are planning a little something special from a block party type standpoint so that we can get some additional candidates out there, maybe meet and greet the public and you all can ask questions right there in person. So more to come on that. And then obviously our website, bataviacdi.org. You can go there. There's a community conversation tab, and you can go there and download the deck from tonight. As well, we'll be uploading some decks from our previous community conversations. That way you can go back and look at some of the things that we've done in the past as well. Staying engaged, more BCDI stuff. So we have a Freedom Library that's also on the BataviaCDI.org website. And it's really to kind of help you with your process of learning anti-racist foundation and just trying to help in that way. So you can go on there. It's under the Freedom Library. It's also, you can go to that QR code and that goes to our website there. Any questions, comments, concerns, great feedback, bad feedback, shoot it over to education@bataviacdi.org. We're also always looking to hear from you all. We're also looking to have additional people engage with us and become our allies, our partners. So please, if you have something or have questions, reach out. Last but not least, we want to highlight local businesses that are, really doing the work that we talk about and that we advocate for. So LGBTQ as well as BIPOC, anybody that you feel could partner with us or we could support them or help them, please send that over to education@bataviacdi.org. That way we can, reach out to them and maybe get a partnership going. That little piece down there, marisafolks.com. She has been our presentation make look prettier person, as well as all our graphics that we've been putting out. So I want to thank you for that. It's been super helpful. So thank you so much for that, because I can't do it. I'm the IT guy. I just upload stuff. She does all the work. So with that, thank you all for coming out. Obviously, we are a nonprofit organization, and we are always looking for help, either monetarily or with your time or with your information. So, if you feel compelled, you can go on our website and put in a donation as well, to help us kind of build our program and continue this work that we're all trying to do. So with that, there's some additional contact information, but that pretty much ends our presentation for the night. We've got Batavia Park District Library Board, we've got the school board, we've got the city council. So that's that, and that's a wrap. Thank you all so much.